Books, books. I like books. I'm gonna read them all. Hi readers, Chris here. Welcome to my channel where I review fantasy books, all different kinds of books, and I have little furry friends who may or may not make an appearance during this video, like Roscoe here, one of my newest babies. Roscoe, thank you. Today I'm going to be reviewing a book that I read last month, December, and that's going to be The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I have read The Raven Boys before, but it was like a long time ago. So long ago that I pretty much had no idea what happened in this book. So it's definitely good that I finally got a chance to reread it. As with all my videos, I'm going to be talking about world building, characters, and plot, but first let me just give you a quick setup about what this book is about. So this story really centers around two groups of characters. One group of character is our main character, a young girl named Blue Sargent. And Blue comes from a family of clairvoyants. So her mother reads tarot cards, her mother's best friend gives predictions. I think she has an aunt that can like touch objects and read them. But Blue herself is not clairvoyant. She doesn't have any psychic abilities herself. However, she is like the Red Bull of psychics, meaning that she has the ability to like amp up another psychic's power. Therefore, her mother and their group of clairvoyants often call on Blue to basically provide them with her energy so that they can like enhance what they're doing. So she comes from a very unique family, and she has been told since she can remember, since she was born, that her destiny is to kill her true love by kissing them. Yes, that's right. Blue has grown up her entire life thinking that she is destined to kill her true love if she kisses them. So that's one area. On the other area, our other main characters are a group of young boys known as the Raven Boys. And the Raven Boys all attend this super prestigious, wealthy school called Avonlea Academy. And we really have four main characters here. Gainsey, who is basically kind of the leader of the group. He's the richest one. He kind of brings everyone along with him in his antics. Adam comes from a very poor family, so he's kind of a little bit resentful of Gainsey and his money. He's at Avonlea as a scholarship. He's part of the group. We also have a young boy named Ronan, who comes from a very mysterious family that we don't really know a lot about in book 3, but it's alluded to that Ronan has a bit of a troubled past. He may or may not have gotten involved in some, we'll say, dark stuff in his past. And then fourth, we have Noah, who again is another kind of mysterious boy that we don't know a lot about. He's the shy one of the group. So what does Blue have to do with the Raven Boys? Well, every year, Blue and her family partake in this ritual where basically there is what's called a ley line that runs through their town. And a ley line is supposed to be like an energy superhighway, basically. So once a year on St. Mark's Eve, when the psychic energies are at their most potent, if you will, Blue and her family help guide ghosts along the ley line to their afterlife. Now Blue, because she's not clairvoyant and not psychic, she can't actually see the ghosts. She just goes along because, like I mentioned, she has the power to like amp up other people's powers. But this year something different happens, and this year Blue does see a ghost on the ley line. And this ghost, not only does she see him, but he talks to her, and his name is Gainsey. Yes, that's right. One of the Raven Boys, Gainsey. So that begs the question, why is this boy that's alive, going to school, part of the Raven Boys, why did she see his ghost on the ley line, and why did he talk to her? Dun, dun, dun. Everything I just told you is like, that's like the setup of the book. And yes, that is a lot of setup. It's a lot. This book does have a lot of world building, like very quickly, very, very quickly. And at first it is a little bit overwhelming, but if you're used to reading fantasy, you're used to having a lot of info dump, it shouldn't be a problem. If you're not used to that, it might take you a little while to like really get used to it, but I don't think it's too bad. I've definitely read a lot worse. I've read a lot worse. So let's talk about the world building now. So as I mentioned, the town that all of this is taking place in is called Henrietta. And Henrietta, the reason why all of this kind of psychic stuff is going on here is because Henrietta has a lot of these ley lines, a lot of these psychic energy superhighways. And there are a couple points, let's say, in the book and in the plot where these ley lines actually cross each other so they connect. And in the areas where that happens, then things start to get really crazy, really crazy. So because Henrietta has all these psychic highways, it also attracts a lot of things too, I think. Throughout the story, and I'll talk about this a little bit in the plot, like, I do think that because of all this psychic energy floating around, I think the town does attract things that may or may not be wanted at all times. I think sometimes it attracts good things, sometimes it attracts bad things. I think the book does a good job in setting up that there is like a history to this town. So even though like everything that's happening to the characters is very present day, I think the book does a good job in setting up that, hey, in the past there are other people that have tried to use the ley lines for various different things, both positive and negative, and a lot of, let's say, actions that happened in the past are affecting the present. So I think the book does a really good job of setting up this sense of history, setting up the fact that, hey, there's a lot of supernatural stuff that goes on here. You should question everything because you never know what's really going on, but you should also just accept that all this supernatural stuff is happening. It sounds really strange to say it that way. I hope you know what I mean. But like, whatever happens in the book, you should just accept that this is a magical world and a magical place and magical stuff is going to happen. But at the same time, you should question the things that are happening because you don't know if those things are magical or not. I hope that makes sense the way I'm trying to explain it. I don't know. Don't listen to me. So let's talk about our characters now, starting with Blue, kind of our main character. I do think the book does a good job balancing like Blue's story and perspective versus kind of the Raven boys. Even though there's 4 of them, I kind of put them in one group. But Blue herself, I think, is a very interesting character because, like I said, she's had this like prophesized future her whole life. Like, I can't imagine how strange it would be to be like a child and have someone tell you, your parent tell you, like, hey, be careful who you kiss because you might end up killing someone. I mean, it's really strange. And of course, Blue is getting to the point in her life where she's a teenager now, a teenage girl who's hanging out with a bunch of boys that are rich and charismatic and charming. I mean, something's going to happen at some point. It hasn't yet that I've read, but clearly they're setting up to something big. Clearly. Otherwise, why mention that at all? It has to do with something. Blue is also very much like an independent woman, an independent girl. So because she was raised by a single mother, she doesn't know who her father is. She doesn't really know in the beginning of the book who he was. She's only been told very tiny bits and pieces about him. So because she was raised by this clairvoyant mother, almost kind of like a hippie mother, so she's always had like very loose like guidelines. Like, she's never had to sneak out. Her mom pretty much lets her do whatever she wants to do. But all of a sudden, when she meets these Raven boys and starts getting involved with them, her relationship with her mother is very much tested because her mother has never had to tell her like, hey, don't go out or hang out with these boys, or you need to be home by a certain time, I'm gonna ground you. Like, Blue's not used to that because she's never had to deal with that in the past. And I think that the way that the book addresses it is actually pretty funny. I think it's pretty funny, actually. So on one hand, like I said, Blue is very independent. She kind of, at first, is very wary of the Raven boys, not just because of the whole kiss equals death thing, but because the Raven boys have a reputation in town as being kind of jerks because they're rich and pretentious and think that, you know, they have privileges that a lot of people don't have. A lot of the townsfolk, like Blue, kind of don't have the best opinion of them. And honestly, when Blue first meets some of them in person, they don't really do anything that changes her opinion. It's not till a lot later, like when she gets to know them on a more deeper personal level, that her opinions start to change, but not about all of them. Not about all of them. So that brings me to the Raven Boys, and I feel like it would take way too long to talk about them all individually. So I'm kind of just going to address them as a group here. It sounds strange to think of a YA fantasy that basically has 5 main characters, Blue and then the 4 boys, Gainsey, Adam, Ronan, and Noah. But surprisingly, this book does an amazing job at actually getting you to know each of these characters and giving each of these characters a complete story arc. Yes, that's right. Every single Raven Boy has a story arc in this book. Every single one. And Blue, and even some other characters. Like, some books can't even give one character a full story arc, let alone 5+. I mean, that's insane. That is insane. And not only do the boys each have their own story arcs, like, they are so unique. Like, they're completely different boys, even though, yes, they're all Raven Boys and they all go to the same school. Like, they're totally different. They have totally different personalities, totally different histories and backgrounds. I mean, I'm just so impressed with the ability to have a group of characters that you can see why they're friends and you can see why they connect, but you can also see how they are so very different. And I think for that to come through for the writing is super impressive. So finally, that brings me to the plot, because what is Blue? Why does she hang out with the Raven Boys? Like, what's going on? Okay, so there are multiple plots going on in this book. There's like a main plot, and then there's a ton of like B and C plots, because like I said, each boy has their own arc. But the main plot line of this book anyway is that Gainsey and the Raven Boys are searching for a dead Welsh king named Glendower. Yes, that's right. They are investigating the ley lines and searching for what they believe is this king, this old king from old Welsh times, somehow came over to America and was buried in Henrietta, Virginia, and that they can use the ley lines to follow him, to find him, because if they find him, they will be granted their heart's desire. Yes. Sounds crazy, right? Well, as I mentioned when I was talking about the world building, there is a rich history in this town of people looking for Glendower. And what happened to people in the past who looked for Glendower will affect the Raven Boys in this book. So that's kind of like the A storyline. So through this process of looking for this dead Welsh king, this is how they kind of cross paths with Blue. And then Blue gets involved in their search. Because like I said, even though Blue herself, not psychic, not clairvoyant, but she has the ability to boost power. So could she potentially be able to boost the power of the ley lines? I don't know, time will tell. But of course, anytime someone is looking for something magical that may or may not grant your heart's desire, there's going to be other people looking for him too. And that's where kind of the whole good guy versus bad guy comes into play a little bit here, but not in the way that you would think. It is way more like intricate and involved than you could possibly think of. It's not just, oh, there's a bad guy looking for Glendower too. There's a bad guy looking for Glendower who is super involved in some of the past of some of our characters that may have inadvertently changed the histories of some characters, that may or may not have inadvertently harmed characters in the past that had long-lasting ramifications. I mean, wow. I don't know how this book has like so many plot lines going at once. The main one and then all the sub ones. There's also a plot where Blue is trying to find out who her father is, so she kind of tricks her mother into trying to reveal this information. There's also a side plot where there's like one of her mother's friends is staying with the women, but they don't trust her. They're trying to find out what's going on with her. The one thing that I will say about the plot of this book is that at times it does feel like there are too many. Because like I said, you've got like kind of this main plot line and there is a ton of subplots, a ton of them. And it really creates a number of different mysteries and a number of different questions. And while everyone does have a complete story arc, not all of these questions and not all of these mysteries are resolved by the end of the book. The book does not end on a cliffhanger per se. There is a complete arc to the story. However, the book does not answer everything. It does not. And some of the things that it leaves on the table are a bit annoying. Like I like to know things, so I would have liked to have known a little bit more. But overall, I will say, because it's a complete story, because there's such great characters and there's such great character work, I ended up really liking this book. I just want to say, you're not going to get all your questions answered when you read it, so just be prepared for that. Either make sure you have the second book ready, or just be prepared to maybe have to wait for answers. So overall, I did really enjoy this book. I am already reading the sequel, The Dream Thieves, right now. I'm about halfway through that one. Had to take a break for something else that I will probably mention in another video soon. But anyway, Maggie Stiefvater is probably one of my favorite YA authors. I think she just does amazing work, especially when it comes to characters and world building. Some of my favorite things, as you know. I can forgive a bad plot. Not that this has a bad plot, but I can forgive a plot hole or something if there's great characters and there's great world building, which this book definitely has. I don't know why, but I feel like I'm having a hard time figuring out how to end this video, but now I want to know from you, have you read The Raven Boys? Have you ever read anything else by Maggie Stiefvater? Let me know in the comments section below, and as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel for more bookish stuff coming your way soon. All right, everyone, happy reading.